I don't know if everybody here that's reading tonight has made it, but if they're not here, I don't know everybody on the list. So if we get to a place and nobody's reading that's not here, someone let me know, or let the next person know. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It's going to be very informal. The way it's going to happen is we have a list here of all the poetry readers, and when the poetry reader in front of you gets finished and sits down, the next one just comes up. This is all aimed at being as much fun as we can to celebrate Jim Harrison's friendship with Lemuria. I was trying to remember the last time he was here, and my guess was about 10 years or so ago when he read in this room. How many people in this room got to hear him read in this room? That's about 10 or so. Well, I was hoping there'd be more than that, but we had some great readings. Some people in this room haven't missed any, I know. Got some special thanks to say. Want to especially thank Barry Moser. His engraving of Jim is on the broadside. Everyone here is welcome to one tonight to take home for their book. And I'm sure that he would like to be here tonight. Hopefully he's watching it live on Facebook. I'd also like to say thank you to Barry Gifford. He did the t-shirt design. He sent it to me back at Christmas, and seemed to be kind of a perfect way to celebrate tonight. The poem that he wrote for Jim is on the back of the shirt. It will be read earlier and begin the readings. I'd like to also thank our friends from Grove, especially Deb and Judy and Morgan, who are great pals and published Jim Harrison and are committed to trying to keep all his books in print that aren't poetry. Copper Canyon is trying to keep all his books in print that are poetry. We'd also like to thank them, especially our pal Joseph there. Also, beverages tonight, we'd also like to thank Cathead Distillery for vodka and also whiskey. And you know, this may sound kind of funny, but I also want to thank all the young Lemurians. And a lot of them have never gotten to meet Jim in all his time coming to the bookstore. And they captured his spirit tonight in celebrating him, and have done most of the work since I had the good fortune of being on vacation last week. And finally, I'd like to dedicate tonight, the whole evening, to Joyce, Jim's pal in Michigan. I hope she's watching. And she was his contact for me for, I guess, something close to 40 years. And I have to say that without Joyce, I don't know if we would have as much of Jim's work that we've been able to read. She's working on editing a new book. That hopefully she will be down here. She's never been here. And hopefully she will come down here and talk about her new book. Before we get started any farther, please cut off your cell phone. And tonight is very special for me. I've been sad a long time, and I'm not sad anymore. This is my way of saying Godspeed, oh Jim, and let's have some fun. I'm not going to announce the readers. I think that's a little too formal, but to get things started, I'm going to start. Well, I miss Jim Harrison. I'm Barry Gifford, and you know, don't hesitate to speak up. Hope everybody's got a beverage, and we will have a toast to Jim at the end.
So, like John said, we're going to start off with Barry's poem, I Miss Jim Harrison. I miss Jim Harrison. Not just his new poems and novels he won't write, his blind, wandering left eye, gargantuan appetite, his generosity. He loved Mary Lou's flowers sitting in our garden. He'd never been to a racetrack, so I took him, taught him how to read the racing form, how to bet. We both won a little that day. He'd call me after midnight. I could hear the ice clink in his glass of scotch before the gravelly voice. He'd never fail to mention Mary Lou's flowers in letters, on the phone, and when we met. When I was in my 20s, he told me, if you lived in New York, you'd already be a famous poet. Working on his property near the Arizona-Mexico border, he brushed away a rattlesnake with his cane. I don't shoot snakes anymore, he said, unless I have to, like writing poems. He died 2 years ago. Mary Lou's flowers are beautiful this year, Jim, especially the blue irises. And I don't know if this is a bonus or not. We have to write blogs as part of working here at the bookstore, and I wrote a blog about Dead Man's Float and included an original poem of mine dedicated to Jim. So this is Night Hunt. It's for Jim Harrison. Through winter-thin trees, an owl's empty calls echoes. No bird to be seen, but in this near dusk, I hear it, a clear tunnel of sound. Branch rustle and swoop, the quiet snatch of talons on the ground, one less field mouse. Silence. Then the cold song resumes. Well, let's hear some good ones.
A variation on Machado. I worry much about the suffering of Machado. I was only one when he carried his mother across the border from Spain to France in a rainstorm. She died, and so did he a few days later in a rooming house along a dry canal. To carry mother, he abandoned a satchel holding his last few years of poetry. I've traveled to Collioure several times to search for Machado's lost satchel. The French fed him, but couldn't save him. There's no true path to a death. We discover the path by walking. We turn a corner on no road, and there's a house on a green hill with 1,000 colorful birds sweeping in a circle. Are the poems in the basement of the house on the hill? We'll find out if we remember Earth at all.
El viajero está en la sala familiar, sombría, y entre nosotros el querido hermano que en el sueño infantil de un claro día vimos partir hacia un país lejano. Hoy tiene ya las sienes plateadas, un gris mechón sobre la angosta frente, y la fría inquietud de sus miradas revela un alma casi ausente. Deshójanse las copas otoñales del parque musgo y viejo. La tarde, tras los húmedos cristales, se pinta y en el fondo del espejo el rostro del hermano se ilumina suavemente. Floridos desengaños dorados por la tarde que declina. Ansias de vida nueva en nuevos años. Lamentará la juventud perdida. Lejos quedó la pobre loba, muerta. La blanca juventud nunca vivida teme que ha de cantar ante su puerta. Sonríe al sol del oro, de la tierra de un sueño no encontrado, y ve su nave hender el mar sonoro, de viento y la luz blanca de vela henchida. Él ha visto las hojas otoñales, amarillas, rodar, las olorosas ramas del eucalipto, los rosales que enseñan otra vez sus blancas rosas. Y ese dolor que añora o desconfía el temblor de una lágrima reprime, y un resto de viril hipocresía en el semblante pálido se imprime. Serio retrato en la pared clarea todavía. Nosotros divagamos. En la tristeza del hogar golpea el tic-tac del reloj. Todos callamos.
The Voyager by Antonio Machado. He is among us in the gloom of the family den, the brother we loved. One day of sun in childhood dream, we saw him leave for a far land. His temples have gone silver, gray hair over a pinched forehead. The icy worry of his gaze reveals a soul almost in limbo. In the old melancholy park, leaves spin out of autumn treetops. Behind the steaming window panes, afternoon is painted in the deep mirror. Our brother's face is softly lighted. Are these gold disillusions in the sinking afternoon? A hunger for new life in new years. Is he longing for his lost youth? Far off, the dead, miserable wolf. Is he terrified a white manhood never lived will haunt his door? Is he grinning at the sun of gold from a country of unfound dream, or seeing his ship cracking a thunder scene, a white sail swollen with wind and light? He has seen the autumn's yellow leaves rolling on the ground, aromatic branches of the eucalyptus, rose bushes again showing their white bloom. And his wistful and suspicious grief freezes a threatening tear. The splash of virile hypocrisy is printed on his wan countenance. The grave portrait on the wall is still flashing light. We are rambling. In the gloom of the den pounds the clock's tick-tock. None of us talks.
t-shirts are awesome. Jim Harrison's face. Barry Gifford drew this for us for the shirt. And his poem on the back about Jim. We got them for sale today, too. Where is Jim Harrison? He fell off the cliff of a 7-inch Zafu. He couldn't get up because of his surgery. He believes in the resurrection, mostly because he was never taught how not to.
Birds. The birds are flying around frantically in the thunderstorm that just began. The first in weeks and weeks. They're enjoying themselves. I think I'll join
I promise this is the last one. 7 in the woods. Am I as old as I am? Maybe not. Time is a mystery that can tip us upside down. Yesterday I was 7 in the woods, a bandage covering my blind eye, and a bedroll Mother made me so I could sleep out in the woods, far from people. A garter snake glided by without noticing me. A chickadee landed on my bare toe, so light she wasn't believable. The night had been long and the treetop thick with 1,000,000,000 stars. Who was I, half blind on the forest floor? Who was I at age 7? 68 years later, I can still inhabit that boy's body without thinking of the time between. It is the burden of life to be many ages without seeing the end of time.
Christ rose so long ago, but the air he rose through hasn't forgotten slight red contrail from the wounds. I think he was headed to that galaxy with 6 trillion stars to cool off from the crucifixion. I have often heard the spikes being driven through hands and feet, in my mind that is. The sky was truly dark blue that day, and earth a tiny green and blue ball.
The present. I'm sitting on the lip of this black hole, a well, that descends to the center of the earth. With a big telescope aimed straight down, I see a red dot of fire and hear the beast howling. My back is suppurating with disease. The heart lurches left and right. The brain sings its ditties. Everywhere blank white movies wait to be seen. The skylark flew within inches of the rocks before it stopped and rose again. The cost of flight is landing.
Probably a good thing I've only been allowed to teach creative writing once. I gave him the most pressing advice imaginable. I told him that at one time there's probably only 10 real poets on the face of the earth. Jim Harrison makes that list. Soul. My spirit is starving. How can it be fed? Not by pain in the predictable future, nor the pain in the past, but understanding the invisible flower within the flower that tells it what it is. The soul of the tree that does the same. I don't seem to have a true character to discover. A man slumped over his desk, dozing at mid-morning. I'm an old poet. That's it, period. A three-legged goat in mountain country. It's easier in the woods where you have trees to lean on. There are times I smell bears right behind the cabin coming to eat sunflower seeds put out for the birds. This dawn is primroses, penstemon, the trellis of white roses. On Easter, Jesus is Jesus. When did God enter him for us?
So Johnny said keep it informal. Certainly a top 10 life event for me was a night out with Jim and Johnny and Maudie and Wayne Clay and a few other friends that began at Chriselle's and ended in the wee hours of the morning at George Street Grocery. And so I have John to thank for not only introducing me to the writing of Jim Harrison, but also the debauchery of Jim Harrison. This poem is called Thunder. Thunder before dawn, thunder through dawn, thunder beings they were called. It had to be a person or animal up there. Outside, walking to my work shed, the clouds were low, almost black, turbulent. You could nearly jump up and touch them. I love thunder. I could listen to it all day. Like birdsong, it's the music of the gods. How in childhood I adored these cloud voices that could lift me up above my troubles, far above the birds. I'd look down at their flying backs, always in circles, because Earth is round. What a gift to have my work shed shudder with thunder.
Molly the Brave. Molly was the bravest. In April, she would swing out over the river on a rope tied to an elm branch. There was still ice along the bank, and one day her body was found down by the weir with a bruised head, which meant she hit ice. One summer evening, she hugged me in her wet black bathing suit after I brought her a milkshake. My blood became hot and moved in all directions. When we caught frogs to eat their legs, she said, "We are animals." And on the hill by the river, we illegally picked trillium. All the boys wanted to marry her. We kept putting the wildflowers she loved on her grave. More than 60 years later, I see clearly that no one gets over anything, least of all Molly by the river, swinging up through the air, a bird.
If I seem out of my depth, I am, and I apologize in advance. Old man. An old man is a spinal junk pile. He is so brittle he can fall through himself top to bottom. No mirror is needed to see the layers of detritus, some years cloud with it. The red bloody layer of auto deaths of dad and sister, deaths piled like cork wood at the cabin, the body 190 pounds of ravaged nerve ends from disease. The junk pile was without sympathy for itself. A life is a life, lived among birds and forests and fields. It knew many dogs, a few bears and wolves. Some women said they wanted to murder him. But what is there worth murdering? The body, of course. The criminal body doing this and that. Some will look for miraculous gold nuggets in the junk and find a piece of fool's gold in the empty cans of menudo, a Mexican tripe stew.
I'll do you one better on the 100 Poets. My favorite poem by Basho is this in its entirety. Regarding the true haiku master, there is none in this world. Cuckoo. Anyway, you note that Jim Harrison is no longer in this world, and thus Basho can still be right. I feel my failure intensely, as if it were a vital organ the gods grew from the side of my head. You can't cover it with a hat, and I no longer can sleep on that side. It's so tender. I wasn't quite faithful enough to carry that sort of weight up the mountain. When I took my vows at 19, I had no idea the gods were this merciless. Fear makes for good servants. Bravery is fraudulent. When I awoke, I wasn't awake enough.
So when I talked with John about doing this poem, there's a bit of a history with it for me. I spent a lot of time in my 20s up on the northern plains with the Lakota and the Cheyenne. And this poem feels like it stands out from many of Harrison's other poems in the sense that he's tipping his hat to the multi-dimensionality that he had as a skill. This is called Wolves of Heaven. And as I'm apt to do in some of my own poems, whenever there's a non-English word, I like to call that out so it's not a surprise and tell you what it means. It's a word from the Ichista language, the Cheyenne language, Masom, and it means it's a type of warrior in the culture. They would paint themselves yellow, and my understanding is that anytime a hunting party would go out, they would take a Masom with them on the hunt because they were very attuned to the animal powers, the spirit powers. So. Wolves of Heaven. It had been very hot for 3 weeks, so I worked well into a cool night when at 3 a.m. a big thunderstorm hit. I went out in the yard naked and sat at the picnic table for a rain bath, careful about the rattlesnake on the sidewalk. The sky drowned the mosquitoes feeding on me. The lightning was relentless and lit up the valley so I could see the ghosts who had me ill this past year. Then I was part of a battle from 200 years ago when the Cheyenne from the east attacked the Absaroka, the Crow, in this valley. A group of the Cheyenne were Masom, the Wolves of Heaven, warriors who painted themselves solid yellow. One on a black horse stopped at our gate. but decided not to kill me. I want to be a yellow wolf of heaven. They disappeared into the lightning.
This one's called Mountain Travel. The clouds are unmoving near Cambria, but the mountain I am on drifts south with the wind. A new way to travel, riding a mountain as a horse made of stone and earth. Only a few miles, but enough to flush a condor from the ridge, a shadow passing near my feet, the bird glancing at me asking, "What are you doing here?" I was a little frightened, nestled beneath a Santa Lucia fir, cushioning my head on a giant cone, wary of rattlesnakes among the wildflowers that had read of this experience in Buddhism before Christ, hermits riding mountains. Did people stop walking on water or riding mountains after Christ? What is a man to do if he can't ride mountains? Tomorrow, a walk upriver on the water. Meanwhile, the earth floated beneath my feet, a round river floating in the sky.
Thanks for coming out, everybody. And thank you, Cathead Vodka, for all the wonderful drinks. Junk pile. God throws us out the back door onto a huge junk pile in another galaxy. There are billions of bodies. It's 1,000 degrees below zero, but compacted souls don't need heat. It's logical, because we came in the front door. All of us die in the caboose, not of our choosing. But then we've always seen life disappearing behind us, most always into what clumsily we call the past. Most of the girls I loved are now crones, with me a geezer, shuffling toward the moon. So many years ago, the girl with brown legs in the green dress got off the yellow school bus. Sometimes the past flips over and determines where we are today. The girl's sandy feet were on the dashboard. Beneath, thighs were speaking the language of thighs. God's speed is the speed of light.
When I was a teenager, I grew up mostly under my father's influence, loving the poetry of Rudyard Kipling. In college, I moved on to T.S. Eliot and W.B. Yeats. And then I was led astray by dramatic poetry, and then drama, and then prose fiction. And I'm grateful to Lisa Newman for bringing me back to poetry with this reading from Man Dog by Jim Harrison. I envied the dog lying in the yard, so I did it. But there was a pebble under my flank, so I got up and looked for the pebble, brushed it away, and lay back down. My dog, thus far, overlooked the pebble. I guess it's her thick lab fur. With my head downhill, the blood gorged me with ideas. Not good. Got up, turned around. Now I see hundreds of infinitesimal ants. I'm on an ant home. I get up and move 5 feet. The dog hasn't moved from her serene place. Now I'm rather too near a thicket where I saw a big black snake last week that might decide to join me. I moved near the actual dog this time, but she got up and went under the porch. She doesn't like it when I'm acting weird. I'm failing as a dog when my own kind rejects me, but doing better than when I envied birds, the creature the least like us, and therefore utterly enviable. To be sure, I cheeped a lot, but didn't try to fly. We humans can take off, but are no good at landing.
This is the dog in the tobacco room. I am the old man alone in a hotel, waiting for a ride north to the Mayo Pain Clinic. Loneliness is only a theory when we have the past, which is a vast tumble of events, sort and resort and never win. We live with our memories, a backpack of mostly trash we can barely carry. A motel in Utah gives me the dog and tobacco room. Zilpha and my cigarettes are proud. On television, I see hundreds of cage-free piglets romping. Things are getting better for some of us.
This one's called Notes on the Sacred Art of Log Sitting. To give the surgeon a better view of my interior carcass, I was slashed from neck to tailbone. Recovery was slow, and the chief neurologist told me, "You can walk your way out of this." I began walking out by shuffling down a long hallway. It was very hard on my tender empathy to see so many hopeless cases, especially a truly beautiful girl who was paralyzed for life. I want to walk in the morning with Zilpha again. I want to walk in the morning with Zilpha again. I want to walk in the morning with Zilpha again. I want to walk in the morning with Zilpha again. I want to walk in the morning with Zilpha again. Amen. And I want to bird hunt, which I've done with intensity for 40 years in a row. Is this even possible? The answer, come to find out, was that I couldn't keep up. Zilpha would flush some birds and look to me, wondering why I hadn't shot. I was far behind, sitting on an emery oak log and staring hard at the landscape. My shuffling mood was always corrected by sitting on an oak log, so I decided to make some notes on the sacred art of log sitting. Approach the log cautiously with proper reverence, as if you were entering a French cathedral or the bedroom of your lover. If it's over 60 degrees, inspect the lower sides of the log for Mojave rattlesnakes. Now, examine the log closely for the most comfortable place to sit, usually away from the sun. Sit down. Empty your mind of everything except what is in front of you, the natural landscape of the canyon. Dismiss or allow to slide away any aspect of your grand or pathetic life. Breathe softly. Avoid a doze. Internalize what you see in the canyon, the oaks and mesquites, the rumpled and grassy earth, hawks flying by, a few songbirds. Stay put for 45 minutes to an hour. When you get up, bow 9 times to the log. 3 logs a day is generally my maximum. When you get in your car, it will seem as wretched as it is. Of course, it'll be far better. For hours, your mind will still be absorbed in the glory of what you saw, rather than mail, email, cell phones, TV, etc. Hopefully, log sitting will allow you to change the contents of your life. You will introduce yourself as a log sitter rather than a novelist, detective, or mortician. You will walk more slowly, and perhaps your feet will shuffle like mine. I can readily imagine buying a small ranch I'd call the Log Ranch. I'd truck in 33 logs and arrange them on the property like the Stations of the Cross. This could soothe me during my limited time in the 21st century, which has been very coarse indeed, especially after Zilpha died. And I meant to say before I read that, I was reading that for Joyce. I meant to say it before I read.
Winter Creek. Creeks find their destiny according to the slant, the tilt of the earth. None ever can turn around and go the other way, at least none that I've heard of. The weight of water and gravity are the tools. Dams are the fatal enemy of water. You'd think the mighty Mississippi, with its trillions of tons of water, would simply plummet forward off the earth in its downhill race from Minnesota to New Orleans. It might still happen. Or maybe the Nile will fall backward and make an immense garden of the Sahara. I sit around waiting for these things to happen. Real, big, thrilling things. Not the greasy soil of rotten politics, but mighty bodies of water going amok. Rain doesn't fall up, but down. The great rapids show water trying to rid itself of earth and go back to the sky. I still swim in rivers at night to frighten myself. I just walked my dog to the creek, where on a cold morning she flounders and rolls happily in the mighty mystery of moving water.
Criticism. Like a bird dog, my blood is a dictator. I've had no choice in this matter. They put me down in a grand field, and I was off and running for the unruly birds' poems, looking in a dozen nearly impenetrable thickets. I'm also a hangman for my bad poems. String them up, damn it, from the old clothesline where the wind will whip them to shreds. Our local wind tips over trucks with its fury. It can easily shred bad poems to tiny chicken feathers.
He dog.
I'm a very old dog, much older than most dogs. I can't give out my wisdom because I bark loudly and virtually no one understands this barking except a few other dogs of my peculiar species. I don't bark at cars. They're beneath contempt. I bark at the rising sun when it rises, red out of a forest fire. I bark at thunder out of pure envy, the mighty noise this sky dog makes. I growl at myself when I sleep too much and don't run to the far field in the morning where I saw the bear bigger than me and ran home. I don't bark at the night. I love its black music. I sleep under the porch, inside during the winter. Once I had a girlfriend for the day. I have puppies, but I don't know where.
Books. Looking around this casita and the house in Montana, I see I must have bought thousands of books. Of course, many came free from people to irritate me with guilt for not reading so many galleys and manuscripts. It's plain as day that I've vastly overfed my brain. At this age, it's a dense jungle, and I can't write 10 points of wisdom for you to grease your skids on the way to our mutual doom. A few years ago, my living motto was, eat or die, but now that's worn out. Too tired to guide my clumsy way from pillar to post to pit of despond. I must sell these books, some quite rare, or exchange them for good food and the wine I can no longer afford. I used to look at pages 33, 77, 153 for the secrets of the world and never find them, but still continue trying.
Cigarette. With earth you wonder whether God lit the wrong end of the cigarette, tossed it aside. But no, we were magnificent ones. Now we humans are vile machines of attrition. Nothing escapes our notice. Even the butterflies in the Amazon that must get their salt from the tears of turtles are a possible profit for window displays, salt ads, a fortune in butterflies drinking tears.
Nuthatch Girl. The gods lost footing and rolled down the mountain into a heap at the bottom. We have to do thus and so to keep them alive. Everyone forgot their assignment except a young girl from Missouri who danced down a cliff bare naked. She's part bird, so it was cheating a little. Gods encourage supernatural cheating. Meanwhile, the girl climbed up a tree like a nuthatch to read Rumi aloud in his original language. It's up to the poets to revive gods.
I must say, I've thoroughly enjoyed everyone's reading. I hope I don't botch it up here myself. This is one of my favorite poems in the book. I'd also like to read this for our pal Joyce up in Michigan. Big issues. All these planted flowers I stare at every day have become part of my brain. Outside the studio door, 12 poppies, 7 peonies. The numbers change nearly every day. Are they doing damage, keeping me from all the big issues? Of course, but the big issues don't need me. The surrounding mountains are a real big issue. To them, my steps are soft as the moths. There are too many people for me to be a big issue. I'm more on the level of a crow. The 16 poppies, the 8 peonies, are getting in the way of the United Nations, existentialism, and masculinity. These big issues all fade in the face of beauty.
I'd like to thank Jim Harrison for writing this poem and dedicate the reading of it to the 4 tacos I ate before I came to work today. Tiny bird. The urge to be a tiny bird upon a tiny limb, maybe a bridled titmouse standing on its spidery feet, not a big guy who falls with a resounding thump and bruises sidewalks and pastures, sinks into river mud to the waist. If my feet were spears, I would have descended to one of the tumultuous underground rivers, which are everywhere. Earthborn by the black current. When young, I thought I'd die in my 30s, like so many of my favorite poets. At 75, I see this hasn't happened. Still, I am faithful to my poems and birds. Birds are poems I haven't caught yet.
The river. I've been at St. John for 40 years of friendship and knowledge and respect. We've had some great times and good times again. Thank you. Yes, we're gathered by the river. A beautiful, beautiful river. They say it runs by the throne of God. This is where God invented fish. Wherever, but then God's throne is as wide as the universe. If you're attentive, you'll see the throne's borders and the stars. We're on the side. When you get to the other side, we don't know what will happen, if anything. If nothing happens, we won't know. Is that means? Is that simple? No. Nothing is nothing. Not upsetting, just nothing. Then again, they will be cast at the speed of light through the universe to God's throne. His hair is bounteous. All the 5,000 birds on earth were created there. The firstborn cranes, herons, hawks at the back, so as not to frighten the little ones. Even now, they remember this divine habitat. Shall we gather at the river, this beautiful river? We'll sing with the warblers, perched in his eyelashes.
Moon Sweet. moon came to the forge with her skirt of white, fragrant flowers. The young boy watches her, watches. The boy is watching her. Federico Garcia Lorca. The full moon is rising from her nest high in the Absaroka Mountains. A miraculous cliche, shining down, glistening on thousands of acres of hay. The new moon, how I loved it, out over the still lake in childhood. It meant a fresh start, whirring in from the sky with the nightjars, bull bats, and 10,000 swallows to eat the mosquitoes you were breathing. Seeing the moon, the loon began to call, and a few stars seemed to hiss. When we were young on the lake, the night was alive. Bobcat yowled, buck deer snort, 1,000 irritable birds, the hum of night herself, holding her weight of stars and moon. Dawn only came when the night was exhausted. Brother said the moon was a mushroom, feeding on light until it got white and fat. Astronomers say this is true. The moon was sitting on the hill behind the house, so I walked right into it, cold and soft and not bright white as you might think, more cream-colored with a warm wind. I thought I might see John Keats. The big moon rose through the forest fire across the river. I had a primitive fear she was aflame. An older man was caught camping up there and had to hike with his old dog Brownie across the divide ahead of the chasing fire. They made it in the burning moonlight. Walking in Jerusalem just like John, but farther east in the desert. In the moonlight, you could see mating vipers. They were everywhere in old Bible pictures at the feet of the saints, but didn't strike them. In the Far East, we worried about immense tigers eating the moon, its pieces falling from their jaws. You can't rearrange the heavens to suit yourself. Even the gods are powerless with sun, moon, and planets. Wildflowers listen carefully to the gods and also to sea lions. Perhaps the gods want us to be wildflowers, surprises on earth, these wildflowers. We can't seem to change anything anywhere. The stars have been getting too large lately. Big, white, loose splotches in a liquid sky. Can I handle this jigsaw puzzle of the universe? I'll need 1,000 dog teams and very long ropes. There will be no seating for the audience. They must stand in the nation's backyards. Earth will be at peace again through dog power. The International Dog Church will be founded. The moon will be called Holy Dog Moon, the sun called Sundog. The gods are now called dogs and are much happier. Marching is permanently banished in favor of trotting. The bear broke free from his constellation and loped through the cosmos, thinking he scented a female in a distant world. Our difficult selves are cast in iron. Only the most extreme heat makes us malleable. All my life I've been a night bird, thousands of evenings looking at thousands of acres of black windows. What's out there? Everything, from murderers to ghosts and gods who are safe from us in the dark. The gully is full of big green willow bushes waiting patiently for the tiny migrant warblers due in a few weeks. The stars don't know who we are. The slim new moon rising strains to capture Venus in her curve. Sometimes I'm inside and outside at the same time. Blackness is a friend concealing my disfigurement from private wars. Last night, the big moon carved me up with her invisible white knives. In the dark yard, I chanted and flopped. Where's my straitjacket when I need it? I held on to a willow so as not to be taken up in the air. I can't leave Earth tonight, I pleaded. We always say, not yet, to the gods, who get irritable when they can't kill us. A new moon with Venus nearby, though not in the moon cup as I prefer. So hard to organize these things. Yahweh is the God of galaxies. While the moon rolls freely to help the oceans and to haunt us with our life before birth in a different kingdom, far away. We swam at night under the moon's reflection and tried to catch her. She slipped through our fingers. The moon stares at me impolitely through the fir trees and the willow and window. She's like that. Staring back, you can trip in the yard. The full moon caught herself in the contorted rose vines beyond the window. The rose is called Madame Alfred Carrier, bred for climbing castle walls. We only have a little casita, a gatehouse, but the huge rose is here just the same for peasants. I am not strong enough to disentangle the moon. Nobody is. We were frightened last October when a big wind from the north scudded the moon back south, where it was prayed for, needed by Dia de Muertos. What fun to dance, get drunk in a cemetery. An immense angel died, fell, draped over the mountains, imagining snow. We missed the full moon. Once I heard wolves in full moonlight. A huge storm visited the cabin, also green northern lights. The sky split open in the west, and beyond the storm, the wolves were howling within the thunder. The earth was forcing me to not forget her. I never recovered from that night. This all would never happen again. The last moon will be black in the red sky. The last girl will weigh 2 sparrow feathers. At my age, you don't think about the future because you don't have one. Up close, the moon fills the world.
thank everybody very much for coming and participating tonight. I'm sure Jim feels our spirits. I sure feel his. The readings have been wonderful. They've touched me. I hope they've touched you. Please help yourself. Toast Jim in your own way when this is over. And I'd like to say that we will finish the evening tonight with Howard Barr reading the last two poems. Hope he can make it through them. I sure could.
Bridge. Most of my life was spent building a bridge out over the sea, though the sea was too wide. I'm proud of the bridge hanging in the pure sea air. Machado came for a visit, and we sat on the end of the bridge, which was his idea. Now that I'm old, the work goes slowly. Ever nearer death, I like it out here, high above the sea, bundled up for the Arctic storms of late fall. The resounding crash and moan of the sea, the 100-foot depth of the green troughs. Sometimes the sea roars and howls like the animal it is, a continent wide and alive. What beauty in this darkest music, over which you can hear the lightest music of human behavior, the tender connection between men and galaxies. So I sit on the edge, wagging my feet above the abyss. Tonight, the moon will be in my lap. This is my job, to study the universe from my bridge. I have the sky, the sea, the faint green streak of Canadian forest on the far shore. In unease, the earth turned itself inside out when its gravity fled. All of us fell off the earth. I was in Africa at the time and fell near an elephant. I made my way to her and stretched out on her stomach for protection from the polar cold of the high atmosphere. I caught a couple of passing tomatoes to eat and a bottle of whiskey. The earth used to be God's body, but he took too many wounds and abandoned it. He left us with the husk we made of the body like a wasp nest. Man shits his pants and trashed God's body.
Yeah.